Let's start our discussion of the impact dimension with a thought experiment. Imagine that you were going to start a business today. What qualities would you want your business to have? I'm going to list down 6 possible qualities of a business here in type A and type B columns. And for each quality, I want you to choose whether you want a business that has a type A nature or a type B nature. For example, for the first quality, do you want to build a business that will impact millions of people if it succeeds eventually? Or do you want to build a business that will impact fewer people? Notice that this is a very broad belief system level thought experiment. So please don't worry about the specifics like what fewer means. Just try to absorb the gist of the reasoning here. So it does not matter whether fewer is a few dozen or a few thousand or even a few tens of thousands, as long as the impact is not on the order of a few million human beings, choose type B. And if you want to build a business that will impact at least a few million human beings, choose type A. In my MBA class, 70% of the students usually choose type A for this quality and 30% choose type B. Similarly, I'm going to ask you for 5 more qualities about whether you want a business that has a type A nature or a type B nature. I would encourage you to make a note of your choices somewhere so that you can refer to them at the end of the video. After I display a quality, if you need a minute to think about your response, please pause the video. Let's take a look at the second quality. Do you want to build a business that solves an unsolved problem for society, at least in your country, state, or community, where few people have tried to do something broadly similar before? Or do you want to build a business that implements an existing solution better, where thousands have done something broadly similar before? Notice again that I have not defined few. Few could mean 5 or 10 or even a few dozen, but is not of the order of thousands. Take a minute to think if you want to decide whether you want type A or type B for this quality. Usually, half my students choose type A and half choose type B for this property. Third, do you want to build a business that will grow rapidly, 2 to 3 times every year for 5 years? Or do you want to build a business that will grow steadily, 25% every year for 20 years? Notice that this question is about how fast you want your business to grow, not how large the business will become. Because 2 to 3 times growth for 5 years and 25% growth for 20 years both lead to the same ultimate size. About 80% of my students choose type A for this quality. Fourth, do you want a business in an environment where there is a race condition, where the winner will lock others out and the losers will have to shut shop? Or do you want a business in an environment without a race condition, where everyone can coexist peacefully? Choose type A or type B. For this quality, only 20% of my students usually choose type A, while 80% choose type B. Fifth, do you want to build a business that will burn cash for years and years? Or do you want to build a business that will always be profitable or at least cash positive? Choose type A or type B. For burning cash for years, almost my entire class usually chooses type B. Nobody wants to build a startup that will burn cash for years. Finally, do you want to build a business that will be very good to employees if it succeeds, where the business will pay better than market value to employees? Or do you want to build a business that will treat employees fairly but will always pay market value only, never better? My class usually splits in half for this quality as well, with half choosing type A and the other half choosing type B. By now, you should have 6 letter responses in front of you, something like AB, 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 or ABB, ABB, or maybe all 6 A's or B's. In my class, most students end up choosing a mix of ABs. Almost no one chooses all A's or all B's. Let's now start discussing the implications of your responses. Look at the first quality. Can we condense type A into a few words as having a large impact on society and type B as not having a large impact on society? How about the second quality? Can we condense type A as operating on the frontier of local knowledge? Because if you are solving a locally unsolved problem, which few other people have tried to solve before, isn't it accurate to say that you are operating at the frontier of local knowledge? Well, you know more about the problem and the possible solutions than almost anyone else. You are at the frontier of local knowledge. Is it possible to condense this phrase even further? Can you condense operating at the frontier of local knowledge into even fewer words? How about condensing it into a single word? Can you think of a single word that summarizes this phrase well? Think about it for a minute. My MBA class usually responds with words like innovation, domain expertise, exploration, disruption, pioneering, torch-bearing, and thought leadership. But there is an even simpler, much more common word to describe the frontier of local knowledge. Have you thought of it? It's technology. The word technology perfectly describes the idea of operating at the frontier of local knowledge. Let me explain. Think of everything that humans know, all human knowledge contained inside a circle, so that what's inside the circle is known and what's outside the circle is unknown. Then that circle is what I call the frontier of human knowledge, which is science. Now think of a second circle that contains all common or local knowledge, so that what's outside the circle is not common knowledge. Then that second circle would be smaller and would be contained inside the circle of science. And this second smaller circle is what I call the frontier of common knowledge or technology. If a group is operating at the outer circle, at the frontier of all human knowledge, then it is probably a research lab. If a business is operating at the frontier of common or local knowledge, then it is a technology startup. And if it is operating well within the realm of common knowledge, then it is a non-tech business. This is a better way of defining what is a tech startup and what is not. Technology does not just mean microchips and software. If a startup is pushing the boundaries of common knowledge in a space, then it is a tech startup. And if a microchip or software startup is operating well behind the frontier of common knowledge in its space, then it is not a tech startup. Let's see some examples. Indians have been making dosa batter at home for thousands of years. But in 2005, no one knew how to make dosa batter in bulk and deliver it to millions of homes while it was still fresh. A startup called ID took up the challenge and found success. Today, ID's products are sold at 30,000 retail stores in India and the Middle East. By our definition, ID was a tech startup in 2005 because it was at the frontier of common knowledge at the time in the space of making dosa batter at scale. In 2015, India did not have a cold chain system to deliver fresh meat to consumers at their homes. It was an unsolved problem that few people had tried to solve before. Note that this was not an unsolved problem everywhere in the world in 2015, but it was unsolved in India. Licious was founded to tackle this problem, which makes it a tech startup. Today it is valued at $1 billion. In a similar vein, Indians may have discovered the techniques of yoga during the Bronze Age, but even in 2016, no one knew how to standardize the experience of practicing yoga in India's densely populated cities until a startup called Cult came about and solved the problem by setting up hundreds of standardized yoga studios. Going by an intuitive understanding of the word technology, you may not have thought of ID, Licious, or Cult as tech startups. But thinking of technology as operating at the frontier of common knowledge, you will identify these as tech startups solving unsolved problems. Also notice that both these frontiers do not remain static in time. They move forward rapidly. So something that is technology today will not be technology in the future. For example, in the 1600s, shipbuilding and exploration were at the frontier of common knowledge. So startups pushing at the frontier would be technology startups. Similarly, in the 1800s, internal combustion engines, steel making, and oil refining were technology. In the 1900s, the assembly line, radio, television, aircraft, and computers were technology. In the 2000s, smartphones and the internet were technology, along with thousands of other emerging fields. Anything that was pushing at the frontier of common knowledge in an era in its region was technology in its time. Also, within these broad areas, there are niches that are still technology today, where the frontier of common knowledge is being pushed. For example, in 2021, we don't understand how to make steel at a large scale without using coke. Some people are trying something called hydrogen direct reduction to make steel. So this would be technology within steel making today. If it works, we will be able to make steel with minimal carbon dioxide emissions. In oil refining, oxidative coupling of methane is technology in 2021. If it works, we will be able to make petrochemicals and plastics directly from methane, which will reduce the use of crude oil. And here's the final takeaway. You can create a large impact on society only if you operate at one of the frontiers of knowledge. Why? Because if you aren't solving an unsolved problem, if you're doing something that thousands of other people can do, then that also means that you have thousands of other people competing against you. Compare this to if you were solving an unsolved problem, where you may have a few tens of people competing against you. If you are not operating at the frontiers of knowledge, if you are well behind the frontiers, massive competition will not allow you to create a large impact on society. It may be that all of your competition put together creates a large impact, but your own contribution to that impact will be minimal. Returning to our thought experiment, the first two qualities are clearly correlated. A large impact on society is possible only if you operate at the frontiers of knowledge. Let's talk about the third quality. If you chose type A, then essentially you want to build a business that's rapidly scalable. And if you chose type B, then you want to build a business that's not rapidly scalable. Moving on to the fourth quality. Let's condense these statements to their essence. If you chose type A, then you want to build a business that's defensible, that can keep competition away, so that if you succeed in building a better value proposition for customers, then competition cannot easily copy what's better about your value proposition. And if you chose type B, then you want to build a business that's not defensible, where competition will eventually catch up to you and successfully copy what's better about your value proposition. We will talk extensively about defensibility in courses 2, 3, and 4. It is a key learning outcome of this specialization. There is more nuance to defensibility and race conditions that we will explore in these later courses, but for now, this essence that we have extracted is good enough. Let me collapse the first four qualities into their condensed forms and ask you this. If someone chose A's for all four qualities, what kind of a business do they want to build? Something that has the potential to have a large impact on society, is solving an unsolved problem, will scale rapidly, and will be defensible against competition. If a business has all these four properties together, what does this lead to? What does it mean if a business has these four properties? It means that in this business, structurally, abnormal profits are possible. Very large profits are possible. Maybe not today, maybe decades later. But if all four properties are present, then there is at least a slim chance that the business may generate abnormal profits in the far future. And what happens if any of these four properties is missing? You will not have abnormal profits. It's not that you will not be profitable, but you will not have very large abnormal profits. Why? Well, let's take each property one by one. If you cannot create large impact, you obviously cannot have large profits. If you are not solving an unsolved problem, you cannot create large impact. If your business is not scalable, it will be hard to achieve large profits in a reasonable amount of time. And if your business is not defensible, competition will not allow you to have abnormal profits. So if you chose type B for any of these 4 qualities, then structurally, your business does not have a chance of ever achieving abnormal profits. Again, it's not that your business will not be profitable. It's just that it will never be abnormally profitable. It all boils down to competition. If you are not solving an unsolved problem, you will have massive competition. If you cannot scale rapidly, competition will get time to copy you. If you don't have defensibility, competition will find it easy to copy you. So if you chose type B for any of these 4 qualities, you are thinking of building a business that is structurally going to lead to only survival profits. Profits that are just enough to survive, never abnormal profits. Survival profits are profits where the return on your investment of capital and time will be small, about the same or less than the interest rate given out by a large bank's fixed deposits or term deposits. Now, what happens if you are in a situation where abnormal profits are possible? Even if the chance of success is slim, what happens if there is even a remote possibility of abnormal profits? Think about it. You are doing something that has the potential to create a large impact. You are solving an unsolved problem. Your solution is scalable and defensible. Abnormal profits are possible. Maybe the chance of success is slim, but abnormal profits are at least possible. Please understand, abnormal profits are incredibly rare. Survival profits are commonplace, but abnormal profits are rare. So what happens in this situation? Think for a minute if you need to. What happens? Well, venture capital happens. There is a game being played. Venture capital will be playing this game. Whenever a space has all 4 of these properties, venture capital is available. Why? Because abnormal profits are possible. So venture capital will be chasing abnormal returns and abnormal profits in this situation. But if you chose type B for any of the 4 qualities, then there is no game to be played because abnormal profits are not possible. So venture capital will not be available. And what happens when venture capital is playing a game in any space? What happens when a startup raises venture capital? Cash burn happens, and I mean it mathematically. If any startup raises capital, the raise must lead to cash burn in the future. It is not mathematically possible for a startup to raise capital and not have cash burn in the future. I face a lot of resistance in my MBA class at this point. Almost no one understands why a capital raise must always lead to cash burn. And this has to do with people's perception that raising money may be good, but cash burn is bad, which is a paradox. It is inconsistent because raising capital and cash burn are 2 sides of the same coin. Basic principles of cash accounting and simple math will show you that every time a startup raises capital, it must always be followed by cash burn. In the next video, I will prove this to you. But for now, just understand that if venture capital plays a game in a space, it means that someone is ready to fund your cash burn. And what if you chose a single B for any of the first 4 qualities? Then it means that abnormal profits are not possible in your case, so there is no game to be played. So venture capital will not be available, which means that no one will be ready to fund your cash burn. This means that your business must be cash positive from day one itself, or else you won't survive. Please understand that this is not a judgment. I am not saying at all that choosing type B for any of the qualities is in any way inferior. I am just saying that you should know the repercussions of your beliefs. If you have a strong conviction to build a business that has a type B nature for 1 or more qualities, go ahead. I wish you all the best in your journey to create value for others. But you should know that venture capital will not be available in your space, and you should plan accordingly. Hey there, I'm KJ Saxena, founder of Relentless VC. The video you just watched is part of the Venture Capital and Entrepreneurship specialization, which is available absolutely for free on relentless.ventures. Go check it out. If you're a tech startup founder and want to raise money from us, you should apply on our website. Lastly, if you like this video, do subscribe and share it with your friends.